is they really are trying to set up Crusades 2.0 and flooding in all these different people. It's not just Muslims too, but obviously it's going to cause so much conflict where you have mixed ethnicities, mixed cultures, mixed religions. How do you see this playing out for the next, 10, 20 years, I guess?
I think within the next 20 years, a lot of this is going to be resolved one way or another.
Before we get into it, what you're about to watch is the censored version of this episode. Increasingly, the algorithm is becoming more and more hostile to the type of content I want to deliver. This is a fully independent channel which is contending with the real-world issues. If you'd like to support me and keep these talks alive, please head over to the Substack, where here and only here you'll find the full uncensored video, along with live Q&As, a chance to speak to some of the biggest voices in this space, and building a community of like-minded people. I'll leave a link in the description. Please be sure to check it out. Alternatively, if you do want to watch the whole episode for free, you can find the censored version on Spotify. If you do watch it here, all I'd ask is please be sure to follow. Please be sure to give it a 5-star review. This really, really helps with the algorithm. Anyways, enough from me. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Christianity is not a pacifist religion, and you can see that all over the pages of Scripture. God commands a genocide in the Old Testament. That's hardly pacifist. When God comes back, he's going to destroy all his enemies and then torture them for eternity. Just how can anyone possibly look at Christianity and think this is a pacifist religion? It's complete nonsense because it is corruption that was brought into the churches largely in the 60s, but starting earlier than that, trying to make Jesus into some sort of, love and forgiveness and everything goes sort of hippie, which, I guess they had a little bit of a head start since he had a beard and sandals. So they tried to make him fit the hippie look from the 60s, but he was not a hippie. I mean, one of the things he says in a parable, but he's speaking as himself in the parable, he says, "As for those who would not have me to rule over them, bring them here and slaughter them before me." That doesn't fit the hippie image of what they want Christ to be. That's Christ speaking of himself. So it just doesn't make any sense when you see people trying to claim that this modern thing calling itself Christianity is. It's just not. Again, it's the problem of just because a thing claims to be another thing doesn't mean that it is, right? That's intellectual transgenderism. Just because you claim to be a man doesn't mean you're a man, because being a man is something essential. It's something intrinsic. When it comes to ideologies, the part that is essential is the tenets of the ideology. If you don't hold to the tenets, and a religion is an ideology, of course, if you don't hold to the tenets, then you aren't that thing. Christianity, pacifism is not one of the tenets of Christianity. In fact, you cannot be a pacifist and be a Christian. That's apostasy. It's one of the reasons that traditional Christians have always considered, at least the radical Anabaptists who were indeed pacifists, not just to be Christians in error, but to be heretics. And that's why many times they were stamped out. They were exterminated. Their leaders were executed for that because it's such a wicked heresy. You can look at, is it Munster that has the cages on it? There's a cathedral that has Anabaptist cages on it because they used to stick the Anabaptist leaders in there and just wait until they died. That was the Christian answer to pacifism. So if people want to try and contend that Christianity is pacifist, they're doing it to be subversive because the history is all there and it is not a history of pacifism. And like you said, the Crusades, great example as well. So
right,
Christianity doesn't make men weak. That's not how it works. And you know what? I don't necessarily think that paganism makes men weak either. I think that there are certain kinds of paganism that certainly make men weak generationally because of the long-term biological consequences. So like Hinduism makes men weak because it corrupts them genetically. I don't think European paganism necessarily made men weak. I don't think that it gave them the capacity to organize at the same level as Christianity. And I think history bears that out. You had strong men who were pagan during that period of European history, but they never built empires. The only real exception is Rome, right? That's the one exception you have. Pagan Rome built an empire, but then pagan Rome became Christian, and the Holy Roman Empire eclipsed the Roman Empire by an order of magnitude. And then that sets the stage for colonialism, where Europeans conquered the world. So, I mean, if you're looking at Northern Europe, there's not a single empire worth mentioning. in pagan times. You have
Right.
the beginnings of one in France for a little while there, but it's nothing even compared to modern France. And modern France is nothing particularly impressive these days. So you just didn't have anything achieved on that sort of scale. The individual men could be strong men, and maybe a tribe was a strong tribe, but it could not produce the sort of foundation that was necessary for what Europe was at her height. And I think the height was basically the Holy Roman Empire leading into the colonial period. The height is certainly not today.
No. No, and that's the thing. Like, and I'm not saying this to incite violence or anything, but it's just an accurate reflection of what's happening right now is they really are trying to set up Crusades 2.0 and flooding in all these different people. It's not just Muslims too, but obviously it's
Yeah.
going to cause so much conflict where you have mixed ethnicities, mixed cultures, mixed religions. How do you see this playing out for the next, I don't know, 10, 20 years, I guess?
I think within the next 20 years, a lot of this is going to be resolved one way or another. So I don't think that we have, an infinite amount of time to solve these problems. The question really is when it becomes kinetic in any given country. So you've seen little inklings of it, beginnings of it in some places. We had a little bit of in Ireland recently. It's happened with some skirmishes here and there, even in continental Europe, where it's much harder because of the oppressiveness of their governments. But there will eventually be a tipping point. And I think once it happens in one country, it'll basically act like dominoes. It'll be what they were worried about, the French Revolution. There was a huge concern that the French Revolution would spill over into other parts of Europe and destabilize. It's one of the reasons you have, for instance, the Germans coming in, and you have the different conservative countries in Europe responding to the French Revolution and trying to restore the French monarchy because they saw what would happen there. In this case, it'll be helpful for us because I think as soon as that first domino falls, the next one will be faster and then faster and faster. And depending on how things go in a given country, perhaps we can even lend each other aid if it goes well enough. For instance, in the US context, I think that we will resolve our problems with sufficient time to help Canada at least. I hope we're able to help Europe as well, but certainly, Canada's next door and almost their entire population is within reasonable walking distance of our border.
Mm.
So I think that we should help them because they're our brothers. They are genetically nearly identical to us. So I think that we'll be in a position to do that. I think that they have a harder time necessarily doing it themselves and throwing off the shackles on their own. So I think they probably will need our help, but I think we'll be in a position to do that. It's up in the air exactly what the timeline is because there are just so many variables, and it would be wild speculation on my part to give a firm timeline. But I think the world will be fundamentally different in 10 years.
Yeah.
And the US, at the very least, the US will be a fundamentally different place in 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's one way or the other. And if we work together and organize like we should, we'll be the ones who come out on top. If we continue to squabble, then it's going to be a much harder path.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, no one can really contest what America is today because obviously it's you guys who have built America to what it is. America didn't even exist without the WASPs, right?
Yeah.
But what that means is, okay, there won't be sympathy for the losers, right? And
Correct.
that's just what it is. So it will, one way or another, like you say, we will see what the new world is going to look like. And realistically, we should understand that if we lose, there won't be any sympathy. It's just what it is. So keep that
It
in
will
mind.
be
Plan accordingly.
significantly worse than the aftermath of losing World War II.
Right.
And that
Right.
certainly wasn't very good.
Right. And then
my family's Prussian. Prussia no longer exists. It'll be worse than that.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, we can already see small little pockets, whether it's in South Africa, whether what happened in Rhodesia, we know what happens. History does repeat itself. I mean, even just last week, there was, you probably saw it, but Germany, there was this Islamic guy plows into a pride festival.
Berlin, yeah. I lived in Berlin for 14 months, so yeah.
Well, yeah. So and then like a couple of days ago, Paris.
I did not attend those parades, as I would hope people know.
Just
but
to clarify,
I have walked down that street many times in my life. So
yeah, yeah. It really is like when I speak to Germans, when I speak to the French, when I speak to people in the cities in the UK, they just get sad because they know what it was and they know what it is now, and it
yeah,
is just unrecognizable.
yeah. I very nearly, chronologically speaking, was personally involved in a similar attack, but on a Christmas market. I actually wrote about it in one of my articles about the Waukesha attack, actually. But I went to a Christmas market, and literally 24 hours, like to the minute, from when I was sitting at one of the stalls there having, some sausage and glühwein, a Muslim drove a car into the Christmas market, into that stall, the stall I was sitting at the day before, and killed a number of people. So
Well,
that was
yeah,
obvious. That was back in 16 or 7? It was 2016, I believe that was. So, yeah.
it's literally every day. I'm getting a new notification, a new article, a new video every single day. There is something happening.
Yeah.
It's again, we're not inciting violence, but obviously this isn't sustainable. Obviously, this shouldn't be tolerable. And it's we'll see. I do think America is in the best position because of your First and Second Amendment. To be fair,
The Second Amendment more than the first, but the First Amendment helps for a lot of things. I know I've talked to some guys in the various nationalist groups in Britain and in Germany as well, and I know that there are significant challenges there with what you are and are not allowed to say. Here, yes, they can, ruin your life, right? They can certainly make your life hell, but they can't necessarily throw you in prison just for saying things they don't like. They have to figure out some other way to get you here. They're not above planting evidence. They love to do that. And if you become enough of a problem, generally that's the route they go. They plant evidence, they arrest you for it. It's transparent, but there's no one to defend you. But at least here we do have the general ability to speak the truth without being arrested just for that. With caveats, obviously. I can only say so much on X before my account gets limited again or I get banned or whatever. But we have that advantage. We don't get thrown in prison for just saying that Muslims need to stop killing people. I can say that. I could post that right now on X and not get arrested. If I were a British citizen, an iffy proposition. I might have the police at my door within the next couple hours.
right?
So that is a certain advantage, but a very significant advantage, actually. But the Second Amendment, the fact that we have not lost our firearms and various weapons is definitely helpful going forward because most Europeans are relatively disarmed. You can't actually get a gun in Germany if you join a gun club. A lot of people don't know that you can actually get a gun in Germany, but because shooting clubs are still very popular, particularly in the South. So you can, but it's different from what you have to do here. It's easier to get one here. So that it changes the dynamics. Obviously, yes, the military is significantly better funded and armed, but a lot of the military guys, if things go sideways, are actually on our side, particularly the Spec Ops guys and the Green Berets, guys like that, the guys you really want on your side. So depending how kinetic things become in the U.S. situation, it will at least be exciting in the U.S. case just because of the fact that we have so many firearms here. So it changes how that plays out, and I guess in the European case, it's sort of like the student movements where a lot of times, they were crazy leftists, but they generally weren't very armed. So it's kind of back to that in the European case.
Yeah. Like in the UK, you can have a gun, but then you need a license. And then when you store the gun in your house, you have to have like it completely disarmed. You have to have like 2 different safes. And then obviously they're going to be doing these routine inspections.
Germany's the same way. Yeah.
Right.
And the safe is a significant safe in the German law.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, if you're in a situation,
heavy, expensive thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, California and some places in the U.S. are starting to enact laws like that. they'll probably eventually get struck down. Behind the scenes, the NRA is, and as much as people will legitimately criticize the NRA, the National Rifle Association, at this point, because they're kind of like a sweepstakes group at this point. It's very targeted toward boomers and others, and their legal program, their ILA group, actually does a lot of great work. So they're pushing back against those laws, but in some of the particularly coastal states, we're starting to get those laws in the US where it's, yes, you can have a gun in your house, but you have to store it unloaded, and you have to have the bullets here and the gun here, or the magazine, or whatever the firearm happens to be. You aren't allowed to keep it, ready at your bedside table. I live in the South, so that's not a concern here. But in the coastal parts of the country, that's starting to be a concern, some of those places. And you have places like New Jersey where I don't know what the current state of the law is, but for a while you had a duty to retreat. Like if someone broke into your house, you had to run away. It's completely ludicrous, but I guess it's New Jersey. It's your punishment for living in New Jersey, but additional punishment on top of living in New Jersey.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think the only reason you really have a good First Amendment is because of that Second Amendment, right? If you didn't have the thing to back it up, But I also saw that even if that's getting a bit more iffy with the First Amendment. You had this, you saw that case in America where the woman called the kid dropping the N-bomb, and then
Shiloh Hendricks, yeah.
Right. And I saw that they gave her the absolute maximum sentence they could. So if you've made it this far, first of all, thanks very much. If you're watching on YouTube, please remember to comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're watching on Spotify, please be sure to give it a 5-star review. The full uncensored version of this episode can be found on Substack and Substack alone. Both YouTube and Spotify require censorship. However, Substack doesn't. With one YouTube already taken away, it's only a matter of time before it happens again. On top of that, with the Substack, we'll be doing live Q&As, talks with some of the biggest voices in this space, and a chance for you to ask the questions you want answering. Head over to Substack now for only £5 a month. I'll leave a link for this in the bio below. Cancel anytime. Thanks for watching this week's episode, and I hope to see you next time. All the best.